Hello, and welcome to another episode of Beverly Arts Talk. This is your host, Matt McKinney. Today's podcast, in celebration of Women's History Month, is called Women in the Arts During COVID-19, a panel discussion, recorded virtually on March 10th, 2021, with host and BAC Artistic Director, Carly Bishop. Please join us for this engaging discussion. But first, a word about what's going on at the Beverly Arts Center. Join us for our 3-week spring mini-semester starting the week of April 12th. You and your child can meet Princess Belle in the workshop Books with Belle, as she reads to us some of her favorite storybooks and shares fun activities and songs that will get children on their feet. And if you ever wanted to play blues guitar, join us at our blues workshop, or play that guitar and the song you always wanted to share with the world at our open mic nights to be aired live on Facebook Live. And if you're feeling like some relaxation after a long day, sign up for Wine and Wind Down, a workshop where we have a glass of wine and a little relaxation as we wind down for the day with some yoga. Then, join us for Under the Big Top, a virtual gala on Saturday, April 24th, beginning at 7 p.m. We will have special guest Circa Esteem performing as we live stream this event. So sit back, stay home, enjoy the show, and remember, the show will go on. And finally, don't forget to take advantage of our 3-week BAC for free classes including Tap Intro, Songwriters Club, Ballet 3, Adult Acting and Improv, and our Makers Mix. Classes are completely free. Registration is first come, first served. We hope to see you there. All right, and now, please enjoy Women in the Arts During COVID-19, a panel discussion with host and BAC Artistic Director, Carly Bishop.
Yep, you're recording.
I'm recording. All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Women in the Arts During COVID-19, brought to you by the Beverly Arts Center and our Arts Talk podcast. My name is Carly Bishop. I am the Artistic Director of the Beverly Arts Center, and I'm thrilled to be here this evening with such a lovely group of women in the arts surviving COVID and the pandemic. And I'm so happy to start the talk soon. But first, I will let you all know that this is being recorded and we are going to broadcast this as one of our podcasts through our Arts Talk podcast over our BAC YouTube channel. The panelists are going to introduce themselves in just a second. If our audience would mind keeping their mics muted, you can choose to have your camera on or off. We don't judge. So I will start by introducing myself. Again, I'm Carly Bishop, Beverly Arts Center. I am the artistic director there. I started my artistic career as a theater artist. I'm broadcasting to you live from my basement schoolhouse that my husband and I created so that our children could learn virtually from home during COVID-19. I also work from home for the Beverly Arts Center right now. I'm lucky that when I began in the administration at the Beverly Arts Center, thanks to one Emily Leonard, who's present with us today, as their director of outreach, I was allowed to work from home during that job. So I got a lot of experience starting at the Beverly Arts Center working from home. The Beverly Arts Center, if you don't know, is a multidisciplinary art center on the southwest side of Chicago. Our website is www.beverlyartcenter.org. Don't put an S on arts. Everybody wants to. It's just beverlyartcenter.org. I've worked as an actor, a director, a choreographer, and a playwright in Washington, D.C., New York, Florida. I lived in all over the country on tour buses for 3 years, and I landed here in Chicago. I'm very happy to be here. I started at the Beverly Arts Center in 2013. In June of 2016, I was named the Director of Outreach. In 2018, I became the Interim Director of Education. And during a pandemic, in June of 2020, I was named the Artistic Director of the Beverly Arts Center. So that's my story. Who's up next?
Is it me?
Can everybody hear me?
It's either Tia or Delia.
Well, I'll start. Do you mind, Tia? I'm Delia Gray.
No, I don't mind at all.
Okay. And I am a theater artist. I'm currently working as a freelance stage director. However, I started my theatrical journey in the early to mid 70s as an actress. And ever since then, I've been involved in theater. I've never been took it as a career, having to live off of just theater. But I have always been involved in theater. I've served on all kinds of positions: stage manager, director, lighting tech, uh, administration, and also on a board of directors of the Chicago Theater Company when it was open. So I've had a long time love with theater. So basically that's my story.
Go ahead, Tia. Thank you, Julia.
Thank you.
My name, my name is Tia Jones E2. I usually just use Tia E2. I am an artist, and I've been doing this, a visual artist. I love to do painting, drawing, sculpture, jewelry, whatever comes to mind, which is the name of my studio. People come in and bring me the goofiest things to transform or fix, and I love it. It is, I think I would have been diagnosed as being OCD when I was a child, but they weren't into that then. But it really fits whatever comes to mind, because, one day I'm working on a sculpture, another day I'm working on a painting for someone, another day some woman's brought some scrap metal in and asked me to turn it to a woman for her garden, jewelry to make sure that people who don't have money can actually afford something that's in the shop. My paintings, they don't move too fast, but I don't make my prices cheap either. So I'm okay with that. I'm a proud grandmother. I Skype every day to my grandbaby and try and utilize the fact that I am an art teacher to give her, class, without her knowing that she's in class. Sometimes she catches me. She's like, "Grandma, I don't want to do that." So I'm just, I'm all around, and you have to be, in my opinion, to survive as an artist. The fact that I do a multitude of things art related, I think really allows me to survive for as long as I have, which is a good 32 years now. So.
Thank you so much, Tia. Mashawn.
Hi, my name is Mashawn Hardy. Began my arts career as a dancer, specifically with Muntu Dance Theater of Chicago. I'm an African dancer, and I now am with Iodele Drum and Dance. I make art happen in several places all over the city of Chicago as business manager of Iodele Drum and Dance, as the assistant director of community arts partnerships and strategy at the Logan Center for the Arts on the University of Chicago's campus, as a manager and social media manager for Dee Alexander, who's a jazz singer, and as a social media manager for the Jazz Institute of Chicago. So I have several jobs in places where I make art happen and still manage to dance every once in a while when I can as an African dancer on the floor. So that's my arts career in a nutshell in Chicago.
So good to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did Emily not hear me? Emily, are you still there?
Oh, I hear you now. Sorry, I did not hear you before, but now I hear you. Was I just sitting there smiling vacantly?
You were. It was lovely.
My name is Emily Leonard. I'm currently the owner of the not-for-profit Idea Box Integrated Arts. We do interdisciplinary, academically integrated educational arts programming is our focus. We recently became a not-for-profit, and we've only been existing as an art education company for about 2 years. Prior to that, I had one of Carly's jobs, not all of them. No, a couple of your jobs. Carly and I have traded some jobs a couple of times. So I ran the outreach department at the Beverly Arts Center from 2006 to 2016 when Carly took it over. And I was extremely happy that Carly was the one to take it over from me because she really knew the department from the inside at that point. And at various times, I also ran the School of the Arts, the theater department, the fitness department for a while. That's not really in my skill set, but I did run it for several months. And so in my time at the Beverly Arts Center, I learned a ton about arts administration. For my professional work, I also am interdisciplinary. I do all kinds of things, and I primarily work in avant-garde performance art as a producer, host, and MC. So my grown-up work is mostly in Chicago nightlife and not in any way to be shared with my students ever.
Thank you, Emily. How about you, Debbie?
Here. Okay, good. Well, my name is Debbie Hubbard Parks. I'm an independent contractor and the CEO and founder of Horticulture. I'm a singer, guitarist, and educator. I've been married for about over 35 years, and we have 2 boys, wonderful boys. We're a musical family, and met my husband in Carl Fisher Music Store downtown years ago, and we're still making music.
Joanna, certainly last but not least, you're up.
I think I'm the only non-Chicago. I live in New York City, and I had the huge pleasure of meeting Carly when my company, the Equus Projects, was in a teaching residency at Poe Classical Elementary in the Pullman district of Chicago. I've also had the pleasure of meeting Emily there. I'm a choreographer. I've had a long trajectory of professional life as a performer, dancer. Lived in Seattle for many years and danced out there with the Bill Evans Dance Company, had my own company, moved to New York, back to New York actually in 1991, and was on the faculty at Tisch at NYU and then at Juilliard and in the Ailey BFA program, where I was on the faculty teaching composition, improvisation, and mentoring choreography for 16 years, and have taught a lot of amazing dancers who have gone on to have phenomenal careers. It's very exciting. And about 24 years ago, I was invited into a project where I could make a site-specific piece for my college. They have a big campus, and they also have an equestrian program. And I said, I'd like to put dancers with horses. And I had reasons for that. I sort of thought it would be exciting and draw attention to the dance department, which I thought was an important part of this college. And I just became seduced with the idea of dancing with these 1,200-pound animals, because as a dancer, we had the capacity to physically join them energetically. And for a horse, that means that they can sense that. And they began to take us on as part of their herd. Anyhow, I went on to form a dance company that performs with horses. We've been trained by really famous natural horsemanship cowboys, and we actually have worked all over the United States. We work with local equestrians and their horses, with local performing artists. And then we bring a lot of the work that we do with the listening and attending skills that we use with horses into the schools. And for many years, I was leading a double life. So I would bring a lot of that work to my students at Ailey and at Juilliard, and a number of them ended up performing with me. So Equus has been sort of embedded in the Pullman district for 5 years and done a number of wonderful devising projects with the community.
That is so wonderful. Thank you so much for being here, Joanna, and for sharing. I guess we'll move on to, we're going to start our first topic of discussion for the night. We're going to talk about challenges and successes. When I think about my career, there were female members and mentors that stand out in it. People that sort of showed me the way, took me under their arm, helped me get to where I am today. And when I think about them, especially I think about them the most during the pandemic. I feel like I'm, standing on their shoulders, trying to break a glass ceiling. And I wanted to sort of bring them up at the beginning of our talk tonight so we could talk about the people that went before and the things that we learned from them. If you all wouldn't mind sharing, and you don't have to share, but if you have someone that you want to talk about briefly, I'd appreciate that. And I'll go first just to warm everybody up. My personal mentor that is probably the most responsible for me being where I am today was a woman named Sue Rowe. She taught piano in Hagerstown, Maryland, which is my hometown. I'm originally from the East Coast. And Sue worked in the music shop called Machin Music, which was in, the part of the town that I lived in. And of course, like any kid who took music lessons, I got really excited at first, and I was excited for about 4 weeks, and the excitement started to wear off, and I, maybe started not practicing as much as I should have. And one day I was trying desperately to plunk through a song that I clearly had not rehearsed. And Sue put her hands on my hands and said, "Carly, do you like to sing?" And I, at that time, had only sang maybe in a church choir or together when my family sang Christmas carols or something. And I said, "I don't know. I guess it's fun." And Sue invited me to come and audition for the theater company in town that was called Escapade Theater Company. And I did, and I got in, and we would rehearse every week, once a week on Thursday nights. I'll never forget that. And that was my start. Sue Rowe and her partner at the time, William Morris, not the famous William Morris, Hagerstown William Morris, got me off on a road that became a career. They inspired me for a lifelong career of working in the theater and struggling as an artist. And they developed and ignited a passion in me that I never knew I had, maybe never would have known I had if it weren't for Sue. So that's my mentor story. Go ahead, Tia.
I was, people ask that question a couple of times in life, and I never think I really have a huge answer for them. There are artists that I like, but mentor. And I thought to myself while you're talking, it's actually my brother who is no longer on this earth. We didn't have the greatest relationship, but he used to spend so much time in his room, his little, you go into his room, it smells like a little funky little boy's room, and he was always had these comic books where he was drawing. He loved cowboys and Indians, and he would draw them all the time. And I would watch him. And then one day I was like, how do you draw? And then I just decided, well, that's a line, follow that line. And, I started figuring it out. But I realized that all of that came from the fact that I used to admire, how he would draw, cowboys and Indians. He would figure out how to draw the gun properly, and, the cowboys. And those aren't easy things to draw, hats and things like that. But yeah, he actually is my mentor. Robert Lee Jones is my mentor.
A beautiful story. Debbie, I think you wanted to share in this category too about your mentor.
Yeah, first my late mother was inspiration, first of all, because she got my first guitar for me when I was about 11 or 12. She asked me to go out to the car, and there was this get this bag out of the trunk, and it was a beautiful Sunburst guitar, which I still have. And so later on, she sacrificed for me to take lessons. And that was a sacrifice, because we went from having 7 people in our home, a mom, dad, and 5 kids, to 13 when our aunt died, and we had to take in all of it. So it was a sacrifice. but she knew I loved music and got me my first guitar and lessons. But one of my mentors, it was Anna Stang. She's a folk singer, storyteller. Used to teach, lived in Blue Island. She moved to Florida last year. But she taught music at the former World Music Company, which was in Beverly. It was a music school for about 14, 15 years before they went out of business, about 29 and 2009. Yeah. Anyway, I would take my two boys to lessons to World Music Company, and I would grab the guitar and sing and play. And one day she heard me and she said, "Hey, I'd love to have you sit in my infant toddler music class." And, just to kind of, she traveled all over the United States and doing music programs. So she was looking for a sub. And so she mentored me and she taught me a lot about the children's music. And that's, with her training and things, I ended up taking over her classes. And so until COVID, I was doing infant toddler classes probably for about 12, 13 years at the University of Chicago for their Family Resource Center, Beverly Arts Center, at the Alsop Library. And it all started because Anna took the time to mentor and train me in children's music. So, and then she was just a great role model for music. She used to run the song circles in Blue Island at a library. So eventually I got that bug and I started doing open mics for probably the last 12, 13 years around the city and suburbs. Until COVID, I was joining the open mic at Smith Village, which is in Beverly, at a senior living assistance place, and at Down Home Guitars out in Frankfort, Illinois. But Anna Stang, a wonderful, again, folk singer, guitarist, storyteller. She plays multiple instruments, but through her influence, I have gained a really good career doing children's music and teaching guitars at various places, as well as with the 21st Century Chicago Youth Center, where I do after school music programs in CPS schools. So I would say Anna Stang was definitely, a music giant for me, a great mentor. And I give her props. I used to always tell her I wanted to be like her when I grow up. And she was just wonderful. So I would say she was my mom, first of all, who just, knew my passion for music and sacrificed for lessons in guitar. But Anna Stang for actually bringing me into the world of children's music. So again, for the last couple of years, that's what I've been doing, and prior to COVID. But it's Anna Stang, a wonderful individual. Yeah.
Thank you, Debbie, for sharing. If you've just joined us, we're talking about the mentors who opened the doors for us to become the artists that we are today, or the women that we are today. Does anybody else want to add to that before we move on to the next thing?
Sure. Actually, when I think about it, my inspiration came from my next door neighbor. I was a little girl about 7 or 8 years old, and I remember distinctly on certain evenings, not quite dusk, but almost dusk, Mrs. Flagg, the next door neighbor, she would open up her window and she would play the piano and she would sing opera. And I'd sit on the stoop of my house and I'd just sit there totally mesmerized by this woman's voice. And especially when she'd hit these high notes. I mean, she was a soprano, so I was just enthralled. Well, as fate would have it, when I was in music class at school, I would just sing. I mean, it would just come out of me because I was thinking I had to project, I guess, like Mrs. Flagg. And finally, I guess I might have been a 6th or 7th grader. The music teacher, Mrs. Bach, came to me and she sat me down. She says, "You really like singing, don't you?" I said, "Yes, I love to sing." And I remember her saying, "Well, I'm going to put you right here. When we run the scales, you stand right here, you watch my fingers, and you listen for the sound." And it's really quite funny. I was tone deaf. So I don't know what was coming out of my mouth when I was singing, what notes were being hit. But watching her and listening to her, I started to feel the vibration of the piano. And when I took piano lessons, I then began to connect somehow mentally these notes moving from half step to a full step to whatever, and actually learned how to sing. And in high school, I joined the Jimmy Shanties, which was the choral group, and we performed The King and I and Pirates of Penzance, and I always got a part. So my inspiration was Mrs. Flagg, but the technical practice and doing it over and over and listening and connecting the dots, I give that to Mrs. Bach, who really gave me an ear for music and a love then as an adult for theater.
That is a spectacular story. The power of teachers, you know?
Yes.
Like Ms. Rowe just putting her hands on my hands. Then all of a sudden she created a theater artist for the rest of my life. I have a feeling my children will probably end up being theater artists, even though I keep telling them, don't do it. End up being that. Well, that is wonderful. Emily Leonard has posed a really wonderful question for us. So we'll move on to the next question. She's asking, tell me about the ways you feel that being a woman has worked to your advantage in the arts. And I have to say, I'm going to insert myself in there and answer it first, that women are such great multitaskers, right? We know how to spin plates like there's no tomorrow. And just having that ability to multitask and manage and spin those plates has given me more advantage in my career than maybe talent did. You know, just being able to organize and keep my ducks in a row. I actually think that, Emily, that's probably why you hired me as your replacement as the director of outreach. And that has really opened up some doors for me. So what about anybody else? What sort of advantages do you find that your gender gives you in your art? Go ahead, Tia.
Well, I saw that question and I really thought, I really don't think that it really has mattered for me. All the things that I am, female, Black, lesbian, all of that, it's like, it really works in the arts. It doesn't take anything away, but it doesn't add either. You know, it's like, I'm not getting, you know, for that. So yeah, I just heard that. I just heard what Alan said.
Hey, you gotta love COVID here
right.
in our household. So it's bath time for my children, but we'll move past that.
But yeah, you know, I feel there are other aspects that there's another question coming up where I do think it affected it, but I think that, well, yeah, I guess it affects me in the way I can be as weird as I want to, you know, whatever I want to do, because I'm an artist and they do that, you know. But yeah, I don't know that it's gotten me anywhere or hindered me from anything.
Anybody else? Advantages that your gender has brought you, or not, maybe not brought you. I asked a question about that later on.
I agree with you, Carly. This is Michonne. I agree with you on the multitasking and the spinning of plates, being that I have 4 or 5 different jobs that I work in, keeping them spinning and keeping things moving and being able to listen um, to everything that's going on and absorb it has been a great. And like Tia, I'm not sure that that's actually a woman trait or if it's just a specific thing that's necessary to sort of keep multiple things moving. But yes, that's been my best asset in moving along in this arts administration world.
You know, Delia brought up a good question when I first was asking for ideas for what to talk about, and she asked, when your most personally rewarding works of art are not seen as public successes, what is your takeaway about yourself and the art, the viewer, and or the critic in that experience? What a wonderful, deep question. I see Emily has a response to that. What were your thoughts, Emily?
Gosh, I was hoping some other people would have to answer this before I do, but that's great. That's good. I'm in an interesting position as that goes because I do so much work with youth. I direct student musicals, which is super fun because I was thinking about what Joanna was saying about how the extra element that she gets from working with horses. I get this special thing where I'll have a cast of 60, 80 students, and you can't get that in the professional world. I see other directors being because you can't afford that cast. So that's sorry, a side note, but those shows are always considered an artistic success because they are with young people and their families are the audience. So that gives me an unhealthy notion of how great I am at things. So when I'm doing professional projects and somebody's like, oh, this wasn't good, then I have to step back and I have to put my money where my mouth is because I spend so much time coaching my students on how we respond to the feedback we get and how we should take that feedback constructively and how we need to understand that our art may not be for everyone or that the response we get may be different than what we thought, and that doesn't necessarily make it a bad response on the part of the other person, even if we maybe don't value their critique as much as we might value others' critique. But I have had cases where a critic I legit respected and felt my work was quality previously has reviewed something and been like, this one was not as good as the others, and I just had to take my lumps and be like, all right, sometimes it doesn't work.
This is Michonne. I've got this is a space that we're in a lot. So I work with Ayodele Drum and Dance, and we're an African dance company. And it's not an aesthetic that a lot of people are familiar with. And so a lot of times we're up against people's ideals of what dance should be and what dance should look like, that don't always fall in line with what the African dance aesthetic is. Especially if a person has a more Eurocentric view of dance. Whereas ballet and jazz not more jazz, ballet and modern are mostly straight up and contained and very, they reach out, but the core is very straight up and contained. African dance is just exactly the opposite. It's grounded, you're squatting and you're in the ground, so to speak. Most of the movements are grounded downwards. And it just goes against some people's understanding of what a dance aesthetic is. And so we have to take people's critiques and people's voices about what we're doing with a grain of salt, wondering whether or not, or making sure that they understand what they're watching, understand what they're being asked to participate in, because our dances and choreography can sometimes be interactive as well. And so for us, that means that the programs to a lot of our events are way more descriptive than lots of other organizations. We're explaining to you the rhythm and the people and why they were doing this and sort of setting the scene for what you're seeing, so you have some basis of understanding what you're watching, just because it's a totally different aesthetic than what most people are used to. So this is something we're used to all the time. We turn up the lights and people are like, it was very colorful and pretty. I don't know much beyond that. It was very colorful though, really. So it's just something we're used to.
I have definitely been in a lot of colorful, pretty shows. So, so I know that. Tia, why don't you add to it?
It was an interesting question for me because I feel like I'm such a fragile person. I come along as just really strong, but I'm so fragile. It's like, everything hurts my feelings, and with art, that can happen. But it really does depend on who it's coming from. Like, for instance, there are people who have they've lived their lives without art for so long that their eyes cannot, your eyes cannot see your head have an eye. And so if I know that particular person is on that level, then it doesn't bother me at all. I just feel like, yeah, they just don't get it. It has to look a certain way for them to think it's art or something like that, Now, I don't know, because I don't know that anyone super large has said anything about my work, how I would feel about that. I feel like I've been doing this for I don't know how many years. And so even in my fragile state, I feel like I would have enough in me to say, yes, I agree with that, but to definitely say no if I don't. I would say to myself, they don't know what they're talking about, unless they do, But I think at this point, even in my fragile state, I know what's good, and if it's not good and I did it, then I'm going to go, that wasn't good. But at this point, I know what's good. And so I don't think it bothers me. The only way it would bother me is if their opinion was going to make me some money, then I'd have a problem. Past that, I could care less. But if you're the guy who can get me where I want to go, then yeah. What'd you say was wrong? Could you want me to fix that for you? That's the difference,
That's a really good point. Sometimes it's in who's talking, who's giving an opinion. I then oppose the exact opposite question. Let's be yin and yang. How has your gender helped you in your artistry? But also now, how has your gender inhibited you or hurt you or posed challenges for you in doing your art? I can only imagine, or at least in my experience, being a woman, we're like, 75% of theater people? How many auditions have you gone to and you had to read the part of a man, even though you weren't auditioning for the part of the man? I see Emily's face. But they just didn't have enough men at the audition. So that's my experience of when your gender hurt.
I would just like to say I will accept that role as well.
I've said that too.
You're casting and you're paying. I'm happy to play a pants role.
Yes, I can be Hamlet, of course. Go ahead.
I might even prefer it.
You're right.
So for this one, this is Michonne again. The dance company that I dance with actually were drummers. And first, and that's the way the company started. We started out as dancers who wanted to learn how to drum to be better dancers, to learn the music that we were dancing to. And so we started out learning how to drum, and then it grew into a community and into a company. And so now we drum, dance, and then drum just by itself. Well, that's kind of a taboo in African society, women drumming. It's a old taboo, and it's slowly transitioning its way out of the door, but it hasn't gone totally out of the door yet. So we're accosted all the time by men, women, and other people like, what are you doing? That the drum is not for you. That is not the thing that women should be doing. Women should not even be touching African drums. Women shouldn't. Yeah, we've had people, and dead serious look on their face, like, I'm telling you something you really need to know. And And then we're just like, it's not really my life or my world. So thank you for your opinion, and there's the door. So but yes, that's really, it's a old tradition in African societies that women should not drum, and should not carry the drum, should not wear the drum. So that's one way in being a woman in this African dance world, that drums has been a detriment, or has been something we've had to overcome.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
See, you learned something.
If you played a drum, a man would make sure you knew that.
Yes, he really would. He would make
Really
sure that
would.
you knew that that is not for you. It should not be going between your legs. Even if you do play it, you should play it to the side, and it's sitting up against your uterus, and it's shaking your uterus, and you won't be able to have children, and all this.
Oh my!
All of this stuff. All of these things that I'm like, really? This woman's been drumming for 20 years, and do you see the 5 kids and 6 kids?
I would think you'd have more children with all the rhythm between your legs, literally.
It's just some of the things we hear are just like, I know that you're talking. I'm just really trying to understand. So yeah, some of the things we hear are really interesting around women drumming. We've had people that didn't want to sell us drums. It's been really very interesting because we were women.
Fascinated by that story, and just shocked, but also not shocked at all all at the same time. I love in theater that women were not allowed on stage. If you know theater history, we weren't allowed on stage all over the world for ages and ages. And yet the Greeks who started theater had women who would conduct the religious ceremony before doing theater, because theater came from religion, and the women were in charge of the religious part of the show, but couldn't actually be in the show. So anyway, that fascinating, and so sorry you had to go through that. We will move a little forward now into the second part of our discussion today, how being women in the arts and how we have been affected by this terrible COVID-19 pandemic. If you are an artist, you've absolutely been affected by the pandemic. Most of us put our art, be it dancing or music or visual arts or theater, in a space where lots of people like to come and look at it. And now we're not allowed to gather together. We've had to adapt into these virtual platforms that we're surviving by right now. So I would like to know what you might want to know from each other about how you've been suffering through the pandemic, how you're surviving, and your ability to practice, create, and teach art through it. Joanna posed a really great question, spot on in this category, and asked, what project are you most disappointed about having to cancel? I see Delia had an answer for that.
Yes. I was so excited about directing the play Front Porch Society by Melda Beatty, which was supposed to open the 2020 theater season at Beverly Arts Center. And I had done my research, and it was just coming along so well. And then, bam, COVID. And I was really quite disappointed, because it was kind of a comeback to theater on a larger scale than what I've been doing over the last few years, which has been small productions for community organizations, churches, and that kind of thing. But luckily for Zoom and Carly's insistence upon doing something, we did a reading of it, which didn't satisfy me totally, but but it did get the work out there, and I think it was very much appreciated, and it was very, very timely. So, but a full production would have been nice.
That is in the plans.
Yes.
Celia Gray is going to return to the Beverly Arts Center, fingers crossed, and your toes in your eyes too, for our 21-22 season.
Mhm.
We're going to fully stage Front Porch Society. Thank you for mentioning Melda, the playwright too. She is local, lives in Beverly. Her children go to school in Beverly. So the fact that she wrote such a touching, poignant piece of art that, as you mentioned, was so timely. That was pretty crushing. In fact, that would have been my answer.
Oh.
Question two. But we're bringing it back. We're going to get it on our stage. Safe to have the actors there and the audience with us, and we can get a lot of people in the audience because a lot of people need to see the show. Thank you for sharing that. Who else? You all must have had dreams crushed since March 16th of last year.
Oh, definitely. Iodeli does a annual concert and African dance conference. It's a 3-day extravaganza. So we start with classes on, actually 4, well, no, 3. We start with classes on Fridays, and on Friday, and then Saturday class and Sunday class, and a concert on Saturday. So we bring in 10 or so teachers nationwide all over to teach different styles of African dance. And we have a concert on that Saturday night. We have maybe 10 to 20 drummers that are drumming, and there's like 30 to 50 people in each class, because African dance is very communal, and there's children running everywhere, and there's vendors selling African dance attire and wares and things. And so there's anywhere between 75 to 150 people just in the space milling around. There's people in class, there's people outside, there's all the drummers, there's people spectating. It's just a big affair. And then the concert on the Saturday night is our company's largest production of the year, and that went away in total last year. We have been working on that the whole year, and finally in it's usually Mother's Day weekend, and finally in April we just had to let it go. We just had to let the idea go. And we're not going to be able to do it this year either, because even though we're getting vaccinated, everybody's getting vaccines and getting vaccinated, and things are opening up, no one is talking about allowing 150 people inside of a space to be together, to dance or dance and or drum. And so it's just, we miss the community, we miss the live drumming. We do have classes on Mondays and Thursdays, but they're on Zoom. And so we're all dancing in our little boxes, looking at the teacher and looking at everyone else. And the teacher may have live drummers behind her, but we can't feel them the same. And the whole community, it's just, we miss our community. We really do miss the communal feeling. We keep in touch through Zoom, and we try to stay connected, but that whole communal feeling of being in a building with a bunch of people, and the way the music rises you up and makes you go across the floor, it's sad. We really miss it. We really do.
Hold on.
Yeah, we're trying to, and in the summertime last year, we went outside for class. This is how excited we were to dance. We went outside on tennis courts of a park to have class. And people have been asking. Monday, it hit 60 for the first time. And we got all these messages. So can we go outside? Can we go outside? I'm like, no, it may be 60, but it's still going to be dark at 5. We can't go outside. So everybody's really anxious to, get back to it and get around each other in a safe way to try to get that feeling. So it's very interesting. And I know other people have had that same you know, that theater feeling of being on stage and feeling the audience out there giving you, you know, or dancing on stage and feeling the audience give you that love and that support, you miss it. Dancing in these little boxes or orating in these little boxes is not the same. It's not. But it's what we have.
Exactly. It's what we've got for now. Hopefully now will be shorter than what we've gone through. What about you, Joanna? Did you have any disappointing cancellations? I know you're always working on projects, so.
Well, I mean, our work in Pullman has just been such a great joy. And December of 2019, we did a choral convening with 2 choruses and soprano and 5 dancers from Hubbard Street and live musicians. And it was sort of the culmination of 2.5 years of building community there. And we were so looking forward to doing that again. And of course, that didn't happen. You know, we're all in this together is what I keep feeling, you know, it, and we're all experiencing this sense of loss, but I've also discovered some silver linings, to be able to, for the first time ever, do a performance where we could combine our equine and our dance audiences together. We've never been able to do that. And toward the beginning of COVID, a New York producer here invited us to do, he was doing live shows of people filming themselves in their garages, in their living rooms. And I said, well, we can't do that, but would you consider letting us show footage from a whole bunch of our performances? And then we've been training all summer. So we've been training live because we work outside, and we had videotaped a lot of that process. And we had 90 people in the audience because people from all over the country, even some people from Europe, came and they were from our dance and horse world. So we'd never been able to do that. And so I initiated a workshop series where we did 6 weeks, and every week we collaborated with another equestrian collaborator. And it was very interesting. I mean, we had dance academics attending, and they were opportunities that we'd never had before, which was so interesting. And I met people I'd never met before, people I might never have taken the time to reach out to. I mean, it's made us all have to sense time very differently. And I wanted to skip backwards and say, I think my sense of women is that we're very adaptable. We have to be. And that in some ways, our response to COVID has been to grow new appendages and to find other ways of doing what we're passionate about and what we love. And quite some years ago, a group of us here in New York did something called the Gender Project, where we would look at the Joyce, and we would look at presenters in Chicago and in LA, and you'd count the number of female choreographers, and there'd be maybe 2, and then there'd be 12 men. And the inequity was so glaring, and I know it exists in other fields as well, and that the women formed sort of the groundswell, that we were the ones running the studios, we were the teachers, but then the artistic directors were generally men, and the choreographers whose work was being supported and presented in large theaters. And we went about interviewing over 50 women and asked them how they felt gender had actually been a disadvantage. And some really interesting things came up, not the least of which was being told as a child, well, you're a girl and dancing is a hobby and you'll have a hobby. And the ownership of our profession as a career was not deeply embedded in us. which felt negative, and something that once you realize it, you go, oh my God, I can change my attitude towards that. I mean, I was lucky in that I got into a Broadway show when I was 21. So it was the first time my parents go, oh, I guess you're a dancer. I go, well, now you have to pay a lot of money to come and see me. Anyhow, but what we also discovered is that women look at their lives in a very interesting way that encompasses family and encompasses our roles in taking care of our parents and our children and our full lifespan. And what I see in some men who persist in a field is that they don't change, but women keep adapting. And I think that's a great strength of ours. And I think it's going to be something that makes us come out of COVID in some really fascinating ways. So I guess I also want to say, I started listening to, there have been these amazing Zoom sessions, recordings of female directors at Lincoln Center, a lot of whom, by the way, are African American, and they're just like brilliant and so amazing to listen to, and to have the chance to meet these individuals. I would normally have been sort of siloed in my little life. And Zoom, in a way, has tempted me to get hungry about it. I was listening to a neuroscientist today. So I'm sort of answering a whole bunch of questions at once. But I do think women are amazingly adaptable. And I think that what we discovered during COVID might very well be the innovations that carry us forward, like homeschooling those kids who might just need to be at home for 2 days a week because they can concentrate better. Or I don't know. I just think there are a lot of things we're learning that are valuable.
I tend to agree with you. During this period, I've done some things that I never even thought of. One week I was watching some theater in Boston, and then the next night I was in San Francisco watching, commentary on it was more visual art than it was theatrical or performance art. And I'm much more open to other artistic expressions. So I think in a lot of ways it's really been for me very stimulating. And even it's gotten me to jot down ideas and thoughts and statements that what I'm going to do with it, I don't know, but I'm writing it down and I'm putting it in a book. So I tend to agree with you, Joanna. It hasn't been all bad.
Yeah. I feel like we're learning to navigate time a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And
you guys have some really good points about that. Thinking out of the box, getting out of your comfort zone. Yeah, exactly. You guys both had some good points about that. This has forced us to really think out of the box of our normal, getting out of our comfort zone and in the normal way we taught a class or did something, right. Joanna and you hit it on the. I made some notes earlier, and those were some of the things that came to me, were and getting out of the comfort zone, and the normal, and thinking of different ways, and being forced to do it differently, and present it to the children because I did not care for Zoom in the beginning. But again, getting out of the comfort zone and thinking of different ways of doing it. And Joanna, you and Delia, you came up with some things that I had jotted down earlier. And exactly, it did force COVID, challenged us to think, oh, geez, I got to do this. And we got to make it fun. So we got to think out of the box. So, yeah, you had some really good points there. I like that.
I'll go
Debbie,
one
you-
step further and say COVID has provided me with some tools that I have been trying for years to get for my students. As an interdisciplinary artist, everything we do has both performance and visual art in it. We're combining music and dance, and everything we do starts with modern dance. So to have my students in their own space where they can move freely without accidentally hitting themselves in the face and running into an old rusty pipe that's sticking out of a wall or putting their elbow up somebody else's nose is massive. And they're learning so much faster because they don't have to spend time learning how to coexist with 30 other people in a space that is too small for 30 people to dance in. And that's no shade to the schools I work with. There's not a lot of spaces in the world that are large enough for 30 dancers to move comfortably in that are located inside a school where they can all still hear me talk. So, but in their home, they've got their private speaker, they can hear the music, they can move freely. And then I have all these video tools. All my students have iPads or computers now. They can now learn how to take video, how to upload a file, how to share the video with me. I show them how I take the backdrops out of their painter or their drawings to make them into PNG files that I can drop into a video. I show them how I can layer them in with their PNG to create an interactive image. And I can do none of that, or at least previous to COVID, I could do none of that in the classroom because I never ever had access to the research. And I know Tia knows what I'm talking about, because I know Tia's been in classes that were designated as tech classes where we still didn't have all the tech that we needed for the students. So this has caused schools to have to provide something close to equitable access to technology for students. Mm-hmm. And I feel like, I will not say that it has fully reached equity, because we all know there are schools that still do not have the supplies they need. But as I go into many different schools in many different neighborhoods and many different economic backgrounds and cultural backgrounds, and I'm seeing the students have access to technology that we've been begging for years. And so it's been really exciting for me, like many people have said, to get to grow those extra tentacles. I love that, Joanna. That exactly describes how I feel.
I want to add something else in that my experience in school, my experience with my son, who's now 27, is that schools are calibrated for left brain learners. And COVID, in some ways, has allowed, as Emily said, there's some technology that will allow maybe more hands-on or more interactive or more image-driven learning. I think that school is also a place where there's a lot of social negotiation going on. And if you can turn your screen off and take a dance class where you don't feel you're being watched, I know that this was distressing to teachers at first, but there's something to be said. I know I have friends who are teaching like at Ithaca College in upstate New York, and I mean, they're dance majors. Of course, they want to sort of be watched, but when you're working through something you're unsure of, to get to turn the camera off and sort of muddle your way through it, and then be able to turn the camera on and say, this is what I did. I don't know. I think there's some advantage to that as well.
Definitely.
And I think my students learning to navigate the tools here, like, I'm sorry, Michelle, I'll keep it short, but learning to navigate, like people have said, this box felt very limiting to me for the first couple of weeks until I started to think of this box as a creative space that my students could be working inside of. And since I always start with modern dance, I always start with levels, lateral, sagittal, and then move on to pathways, energy, all of those things translate really well, especially my spatial relationship stuff, to thinking about this box, where I am in the box, and where I am in relationship to the camera, and what I can do with that relationship to the camera, which is a tool, again, that I can't have in the physical classroom. So it's giving me a year to teach a generation of children a whole set of skills that I would need a lot of equipment to teach in person.
Carly, can I just say one other thing? I had the privilege of being, there were two of us invited to be artists in residence at the big annual conference of Training Magazine, which is Google and Microsoft and all these big corporations that run training programs, UPS, major corporations. And it was myself and a poet. And had we been live, we would have functioned more as here are the artists. They're going to do the performance thing, or this is the physical thing. But because we were in the Zoom space, I could start to talk about, okay, you're presenting on a camera, and actually you're creating training programs. Do you know how important it is to engage with your hands so that you're not just a talking head? And Delia's nodding her head. We as theater people know that. It's important. It's part of your expressive nature to be able to come into the camera and retreat away from it. All of these people were presenting like this. More than that, they also had their artificial backgrounds in back of them. So anytime they lifted their hands, it would sort of get blocked out. And one of the big ahas for all of these presenters was realizing the importance of what us in the movement world might be called shaping in space, congruency between posture and gesture, the importance of modulating your phrasing. People in the theater know that if you say everything with the same amount of force, and I mean, we're all artists here, we know that's important. But for people in the business world, for the first time, I feel like they heard it differently because it really mattered in this crazy virtual space.
Wow, that was awesome. Well put. I see some applause there on screen. We must have a business person.
Oh, we have clapping. Our clapping emoji.
Yeah.
Well,
speaking of emojis,
actually,
there's another different thing we all have to learn.
Let me share this. I make a living in the advertising world.
There you go.
So I deal with a lot of ad execs, and of course, working on the agency side, we work with advertisers, and it has been quite a challenge. The presentation of storyboards and the presentation of ideas has been a challenge, but I think it will be better on the other side, and advertisers will have a broader open mind about some things as they're being presented some initial, creative concepts and that kind of thing.
Yeah, to Delia's point, the hybrid is where we're going from here. And will everyone be able to take advantage of the hybrid? Because we've learned, especially with people gaining audiences from around the world, we have people taking class from other states and from other countries. We have people waking up at 2:00 in the morning to take class. So yeah, nobody wants to lose that audience. Nobody wants to lose those audiences.
Right.
And so going forward, people are especially playwrights and people who produce art on a stage are trying to figure out, how can I set some cameras up and live stream this at the same time that the people in the seats are paying for a ticket? What levels of tickets can I have? What type of tickets can I sell? And how can I get all of these audiences? And music rights discussions and everything. So this whole hybrid world that we're going into, because nobody wants to go back.
Right.
So that's the thing we're going to have to figure out now. And it's going to be especially difficult for schools, I think, in that, you've got all these tools, but when you come back into the classroom, Emily, do you still use the tools, or do we take all of those back and say, you're here now, so, talk to each other and look at each other or whatever. So it's going to be interesting moving forward to see how art takes its next level in the hybrid space. People are getting really good at making dance for film because it's totally different than making dance for stage.
Right.
Is that going to mean that dance for stage changes because we're doing dance for stage and dance for film at the same time? It's a lot. to think about. But I think we may even get some new art forms out of it going forward.
I think it's really interesting that a lot of us were forced into an inhabited space, so to speak. Like, we're performers. So, okay, now we're performing online, but we're performers who choose live performance over video performance as a career. And now we're moving into video performance alongside all these video performers who've already been doing video performance, YouTubers, TikTokers, professional filmmakers. And so we're trying to figure out, what does theater in a virtual space look like that's different than all of those? Also, how do we do this without reinventing the wheel? Because it killed me to watch some of my friends try to learn things that YouTubers must have videos that teach people how to do. Because I've seen 17-year-olds that can do it. And so, like, to see us who do this communicating with an audience for a living suddenly have to learn 18 new languages and decide which one is the right one for us to speak has been really fascinating. And like Mashan just said, I feel like there's going to be a lot of new art forms that come out of this, because a lot of professionals in a field are suddenly forced to innovate into a new field without trying to turn it into the work that's already been done in that field. So what choice do we have but to create new art forms? What choice do we have but to create new art forms, people?
Right. We
Great
have
point.
no choice. Sink or
Great
swim,
point.
right?
Yeah, that's not just the art world, it's for everything. Yeah, it's for,
It is.
I mean, I'm not trying to be morbid, but even what going to funerals now that people can't travel as much, and with COVID they're afraid to travel, everybody has been doing funerals online and YouTubing. So, and they're not going to go back because people are thinking, wow, I don't have to travel miles to go see aunt, at her funeral, different things. I'm being more, but this COVID has affected every part of our world, not just the art, but I mean, I have actually literally gone to funerals online for a couple of relatives that passed away with COVID, and their own mom could not travel from California to Detroit, but it was beautifully done. And I thought, oh my God, this is the way they are going to be doing this they are going to be doing this going forward. And it is not only affect the way we're, with the art world or how we present to our students, but it literally, like you said, Emily, we are going forward. Everybody is going to have to figure out how are we going to navigate, because there's going to be a lot of different art forms, that's going to come out of this, at the end of this, so it's a good point.
I'm just thinking, Mashawn, you were talking about the fact that as female drummers, this is not customary, but surely there must be a worldwide network of female drummers.
Yes.
And now during COVID, you could do an entire international conference of female drummers.
Drum Summit.
Which maybe you've already done that.
Drum Summit. There's an organization that is doing things. It's called the Drum Summit, and they've been having like weekly talks with drummers, because it's not just hand drums, it's also trap drummers and any female type of drum.
Right.
And so there is a worldwide organization of female drummers that has been doing things like that.
But I was thinking of the choral composer Eric Whitaker. Do you guys know who he is? He composes for hundreds of voices, and during COVID he did a composition for 11,000 voices from all over the world, and so he sends everyone the music, and you need better technology than our time delay, but I'm thinking that we're going to get better technology. Could you imagine having 10,000 drummers all playing together? I mean, I just think that would be extraordinary. Anyhow, I'll put it in the chat. Eric Whitaker is an amazing choral.
The closest The closest we've gotten is like 72 hours straight. So what happens is we had
Durational, yeah, events. Yeah.
this Zoom meeting, and you had your time, and you got on during your time, and however you wanted to drum, by yourself, with a group, whatever. You got on, you drummed, and then you passed off to the next person, and they drummed for their time, and it went for 72 hours.
That's fabulous.
Yeah, so and then people were
Wow.
dropping in and out depending on their time zones, and sometimes the audience was really big and sometimes it was small, but it was just a Zoom call like this and everyone was drumming. And it was a peace thing. It was drumming for peace, and we
That's
just
fabulous.
drummed for 72 hours to sort of reset the vibration. And it was a nice thing.
And I think in cultures much older than ours, there probably are cultures that did 72-hour drumming rituals. And again, I think we're re-navigating time. And the ability to do a 72-hour event, I think that's quite beautiful. I really,
Things that were aligned with solstices
yeah,
and things of that nature, changing of seasons and changing, yeah.
yeah.
Right. I have to be reminded, I remind myself often that theater began with people wearing masks. And that was, that was normal. And now, I'm trying to create a summer show. We're going to do summer Shakespeare outside at the Beverly Arts Center courtyard. And I'm thinking, how do I keep my actors safe? Oh man, they're going to have to wear masks. Oh, that's some sort of terrible thing. But that's how theater began. Shakespeare began as an all-day event. There wasn't Netflix. You went to the theater and you saw all the people from your community there, and there might have been a prostitute you could hang out with, and some beer that could be drank. It was like a day-long thing. It's funny how we have in our modern life forgotten that sometimes long can be good. We don't just have to have these TikTok videos, these short little bursts of entertainment. Long can actually be enjoyable. You guys are so smart because you jumped over like 3 questions we were going to ask, but somehow in that wonderful conversation, you talked about all the things we were going to talk about, which is wonderful. I will say that we're kind of up to the next question, which we're just about getting on anyway, naturally in our conversation. Joanna posed it. What have you enjoyed about this bizarre world pandemic? We've all been sort of sharing some odd things. I would like to add that the best, and it comes back to Delia talking about advertising, the funniest thing that I thought during shelter in place was this Arby's commercial they kept showing on TV, where they had 2 sandwiches and one of the sandwiches was blurred out. And the narrator kept saying, don't pay attention to that other sandwich. We're talking about this sandwich. That sandwich doesn't exist anymore. And it was Arby's trying to recycle a commercial that they had before because they couldn't bring people together to actually film a new commercial. And I thought, well, that's just stupid, but also super creative that they could make us, they could make us all commiserate about the situation we're in, where we can't do what we do. And we could be understanding of that. So some of the things that I have been the most entertained by in the pandemic is things that should seem natural, that all of a sudden seem weird because we are having to do them, but now it's become natural because the time has gone on so long. My neighbor, I've always been very friendly to neighbors, and but just sort of hi and waving when you're getting in your car. But my husband would sit on our front porch and play guitar, and the neighbors would come out into their driveway and sit there and listen if we were out there. And there was something traditional, something classic about that. We love the neighborhood that we live in, my family, because it's incredibly diverse. We're very prideful about that. But all of a sudden we're meeting our neighbors and learning more about just how diverse our neighborhood is. And it gave us a real sense of feeling a deep pride in our neighborhood and feeling a sense of being home, not just in our domicile, but in the entire neighborhood. That's something that I've really enjoyed about the pandemic. What about the rest of you? Anything bizarre that you now really enjoy?
Not so much bizarre as I have a new hashtag. I go hard on my couch. I have seen, and I see a lot of art anyway. As an art administrator, I see a lot of art anyway. I've seen way more art online from all over the world, different places, and things. I've enjoyed concerts, I've enjoyed dance shows, I've enjoyed play readings, I've enjoyed play podcasts. Theaters are making podcasts of their plays because they can't produce them. I've enjoyed people drawing in real time on. I've enjoyed Twitch dance parties. It's amazing the amount of art that's actually happening, even though we can't go out and make art, so to speak. There are people who are selling their work online. They're having like online sales. They go live at a certain time and they say, this is number one. It costs this much money. If you want it, say so in the comments. I'm like, are you serious? People are like really doing it. They're selling artwork, they're selling the jewelry they're making. I just have seen so much innovation and so many new things online, that so many people are thriving in this. The living room concerts, the porch concerts, it's a lot. It really is a lot of art happening and being made. I've been enjoying it.
Could you say a little more about watching people draw online? That sounds so cool. What was it?
Well, the ones that I watch a lot, it's in combination with a concert. So Fulton Street Collective is a venue here in Chicago, and they stream concerts. But what they were doing when they were live was they always had live art at the concert. So there's always somebody there that was painting or drawing or whatever. So when they're streaming the concert, there's a little window down in the bottom of somebody drawing or painting or whatever during the concert. And then afterwards, they offer the work for sale. So you can listen or watch the people play, or you can listen and watch the art. I was like, that's just ingenious. It was just, it was a lot. And then there are other people. I know other artist friends of mine. David Anthony Geary is one. He draws, and I guess he's got his camera on hyperlapse. And so when he finishes, you just see a sped up version of him making whatever it was he was making. And then he may offer it for sale or he may not. But yeah, so I've seen a lot of good stuff online.
And once you watch one of those videos, every platform you log on to will just start showing them to you.
Yes.
It's super fun.
Yes, you watch one concert.
Once you get into time-lapse art videos, suddenly they just start popping up. It's really fun. I looked at this question earlier. I was like, do I really have anything? And I super do. VR, virtual reality. My family, so my husband, he works in tech, and the company he was working for, they do virtual training software for nurses and surgeons so that they can go through an entire tray setup for a surgery virtually and not have to bring in all of the equipment for everybody to set up their trays and practice and stuff. And it's an environment where you can, throw your tray across the room and nothing bad happens, which he says is the first thing everybody does when he puts them in the VR is throw the tray across the room. So we ended up with a couple of VR helmets because he has these to demo. We have an Oculus Quest. We have Oculus Quest helmets. Sorry, there's two kinds of Oculus and I confuse them. So it's a virtual reality helmet, and it doesn't have any wires or plugs. You just can wear it and be in a space. And so, you think of VR and you think of the traditional games, there are a lot of fun games and stuff, but what I didn't realize was how much art is being made in VR and what an arts frontier there is in virtual reality. You can sit on stage in a chamber orchestra with the musicians while they play. You can walk alongside elephants and, watch elephant handlers in another country, carefully tend a herd. It's just stunning. And then with three-dimensional drawing programs like Tilt Brush, there are people who are essentially painters turning into light sculptors and making these three-dimensional interactive environments. And because everybody from professionals to amateurs is doing this, there's this huge catalog of amateur artwork that you can walk through in 3 dimensions. Everything from just adorable little kawaii kittens to full interactive scenescapes with repeating dialogue happening that you can watch. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Sleep No More, Joanna's probably familiar with Sleep No More since she lives in New York, but that's the kind of thing where the show is happening and you can walk around and experience the show in whatever angle you want. And I see a lot of that developing in virtual reality, or games that are not so much games as stories that you experience as you move through them and interact with the elements in certain predetermined ways. So I'm really excited about, especially with the kind of coincidence of this new remote work and learning culture. And then of course, you know, the science fiction trope of children putting on their VR helmets to go to school. But I'm really excited about the kind of art that can be made by kids. You know, my son's 7. By the time he's 15, there will be programs that let 15-year-olds program in VR. So seeing what the kids who are in school and learning starting right now in this pandemic, kind of who they are, what kind of art are they going to be making in a 3-dimensional virtual space 15 years from now. And let's remember to watch it, because I don't want to be so tuned out by them that I don't realize there's amazing things happening in a digital space.
Emily, I think you very, very nicely bridged us into my next question to Delia. Posed the question, during this period of isolation due to the pandemic, how have you kept yourself inspired? What have you discovered about yourself or about your area of art or other areas of art, etc.? Emily said she had an answer for this too. You want to keep going? I mean,
I talk a lot, so I try to monitor myself. Okay, so this is really cheesy. So I went through what I assume a lot of artists have, which is all your art gets taken away. So it's like suddenly you lost your job and you loved your job, and then you get really frustrated, and then you panic and you try to learn a bunch of new skills, and like most of them don't stick because that's not really who you are. So I went through a lot of like new things that I learned, but I wouldn't say I wanted to keep those things necessarily. I just learned them. And then I went through kind of an artistic drought because I felt like I had learned the things I needed to do the things I had to do. And I didn't feel like there was any spark coming that made, I didn't want to start investing in a whole new way of working right now in the middle of this pandemic, knowing that in a year or two, we might be back to where I was and doing the in-person work again. If I'm missing words, because sometimes I don't make a whole sentence, I hope you will fill them in with your mind. But so then my dad, who's constantly coming up with interesting new projects for himself and the others around him, started designing clothes on on Printful, which is like a sublimated print thing. And suddenly my sisters and I have 3 sisters, we all just found our spark and we all started designing clothes. So now we have a small family clothing boutique on Etsy, which is full of a wonderful mix of great things and the things that we have learned from designing, the things we are learning from designing. So I will not claim that I am suddenly an excellent clothing designer, but it has been so refreshing to have a new outlet. And I take, just kind of for my own amusement, I take kind of abstract nature photography. So I've just been plastering my abstract nature photography onto garments and making all kinds of fun dresses that I want to wear and skirts and stuff. So that's been nice because it's not my field. It's not what I do all the time. And I don't know if the rest of you feel this, but often artists don't really have hobbies because we are so in love with what we do that we just want to keep doing that. So it kind of feels like I have a hobby finally, like something that is not my main field that I can just go do and not think about my other stuff for a little bit and put, you know, pictures of tiger lilies on a dress. So that's been a lot of fun.
Can I hear the question again?
Sure. Oh my goodness, and I lost the question. Oh, during this period of isolation due to the pandemic, how have you kept yourself inspired? What have you discovered about yourself, about your area of art or other areas of art?
I was thinking about the fact that I'm doing watercolors and acrylics for the first time via Zoom through the Beverly Arts Center. And I never go and look up artists when I want to learn to do something. I just kind of figure it out. But my process has been that I always show a specific artist. Like if I want them to do watercolor leaves, I show them a specific artist. and I stop and start it and tell them things in the middle of it and let them go through the process. What has been good for me is that I'm learning a ton, it's like I'm not actually doing the painting. I can at this point, but I'm like, oh, okay, or I'll just agree with something. But for the most part, it's like, wow, you're giving yourself art lessons, which you wouldn't have given yourself, especially from another artist. Like, I know what I'm doing, but it's amazing what I'm getting out of it, past what my students are getting out of it. So that's been very good. And also, when the pandemic hit, the first thing I thought was, wow, you have all these talents and I don't know what in the world you're going to do with them to survive out of this, And it started happening where, well, first it started, people kept going, Tia, you're going to make masks? No, I'm not making masks. All that work for like a couple of bucks, it's like, I'm not going to do it, And then one day, because I really didn't have anything else to do, because in the beginning of the pandemic, I spent a lot of time just kind of vegging out. I said, oh, I'll try this, and it was amazing how much, a $15 mask can add up as far as your money goes. And those masks they were fun to do. There was a point where it's like, oh God, I'm really getting tired of this. But, I was very creative with them. It was something, no one else had. And I was very serious about making them protective for people and things like that. And I loved all of that. And those little monies were coming in left and right. And I honestly don't want to do any more now. I have the 25 or 30 that I have left in a bag, and I'm like, please don't ask me to do another one. But it got me through a point, and it's my nature, whatever comes to mind, it's like I am going to figure out, I'm going to have my hustle on. And so it's not so different for me because I got to have my hustle on anyway. I've got to figure out, if someone comes, this guy came, he had this huge cooking sheet that didn't fit his oven, he's like, can you cut that? And it's like, absolutely, dude, I can do that. It's like, there's not much I won't tell you that I can't do. But I am skilled to do enough of those things. So for me, I was really worried about it, especially because I have so much talent. I thought, what a drag if you have all this talent in all these different areas and you can't even make any money. And it just so happened that people were actually wanting things as far as art, because I was thinking nobody's going to want stuff, but people were, calling me for a mural, calling me for a sculpture, calling me to fix this. I hadn't even done the hustle yet. And so I was very fortunate, because I really didn't have a clue how this was going to work out, that as far as art was concerned and the different things that I can do, it really kept me consistent, consistently having, the money to pay the bills without freaking out all the time.
Tia, you are on Etsy. Is it whatever comes to mind is your handle on Etsy so people can find you?
It is, but I'm very lazy about Etsy. I have to tell you, it is best to go to just look up Tia E2 via Google, and it'll tell you everything Google. And then if you hit images, if you just want to see the work, you hit images and it'll just pop up a bunch of stuff there. And I have a website, whatevercomestomine.com. I don't run those as much as I should. It's just a lot. It's like I have what is that? Instagram and all Twitter and all of that. And I never friend anyone because it's like, I just can't, all I want to do is post my pictures and then I got to move on. I can't keep up with you guys. I don't know how you do it. I got Facebook, that's enough. I can't do anymore. I'm just posting. That's all I'm doing. And people are probably offended, but it's like, I just don't have time to keep up. It's enough to try and post enough so that you're getting, feedback from the world,
Right.
But you have to communicate with people. What you do, I don't care if it's there. I just can't do all of that,
Well, so, creators are usually best off when they're creating. And
yeah. So
obviously artists have to promote themselves, but you really want to be creating.
Absolutely. And visual artists, I think most of us are used to just being quiet and by themselves quite often for long periods of time. So, that it didn't really affect me so much that way either. I'm totally okay with not seeing people for a while.
My husband has a t-shirt that says, once this pandemic's over, there's still some of you I want to stay away from me.
Exactly.
T-shirt the best. Debbie, I don't want to move on to our last topic before hitting your question. I liked it very much. Debbie asks us how we were able to create space in our homes, how we were challenged to find a way to have a studio, a dance studio, a theater space. I know that I've run into a lot of challenges trying to record voiceovers and studio voice work just here in my basement. And if you could see behind me, I've transformed my basement into a schoolhouse so my children can learn. So the space that's typically Carly's choreography studio, where I start working on blocking, is now where my kids learn every day. So Debbie, you posed the question, but how did you adapt your space?
Because we, with the boys back home, a college student back home, and a son who was working out in Wyoming, now back home, and a sister who had to move in, So to me, it was a little bit more difficult as far as having time to play the guitar and work on songs, because everybody, they all play music, and so it was a challenge for me because I'm used to having my time at home, the quiet time for me to record or just to play when they would be at school or they were at work. So everybody's working from home. So it was a little difficult, I think I may have lost you guys.
We can still hear you, Debbie, and I can still see you. So you're with us.
Yeah. Well, anyway, with everybody being home, it was a little bit difficult. A little bbit more difficult because, again, even though I worked at so many different places during the week, they say at the University of Chicago, when I would do the Family Resource Center or the Beverly Arts Center, or also the library, I was there during the day, but when I would come home, I had quiet time to kind of work. Now that everybody's home from school and from work, everybody's in the same space. So I don't know. I had a little challenge with really, because when the pandemic hit, I thought, oh man, I got a whole bunch of songs that I want to learn and work on. And then it didn't happen that way because, my brother-in-law asked me to help him with his kids homeschooling and nannying them. So again, the challenge of thinking, wow, I'm going to have all this time to kind of work on things that I want to work on and organize. As an educator and a teacher, you have space with so many tools and things, and sometimes it gets chaotic, and I thought, oh, I can have all this time to work on that, but that didn't always happen. So that was my challenge, trying to get things organized and work on songs and do things. It didn't really, it didn't really have that space for that right now, So I don't know. It made me wonder how everybody else did. I don't know if everybody had a lot of people in their homes having to, because I know many other families I heard everybody came back home, everybody's working at home, having a quiet space or a place to create. I wonder if the other artists had that challenge, So
I will definitely say here in the Bishop household, we have had quite a challenge. My husband is a full-time music educator, so he's teaching all day live. A lot of school districts have shifted to having their specials teachers, music and art, phys ed, and library, things like that, record videos. And then kids just go into the Google Drive and they click the video for the day. But my husband's school district decided that all the specials had to be live every time they meet. So my husband is teaching live from the house. He's a music teacher. So while I'm trying to have, big important meetings that, the success of the Beverly Arts Center depends on, you can hear like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, like upstairs. And he's like got the maracas out, trying to teach the kids some rhythm. And, meanwhile, my son is, in math class screaming because the app's not working. And my daughter is trying to sing the good morning song in kindergarten. And all of a sudden I felt like, oh my goodness, where did all the quiet times go? Right? Where did all the peace in the world go? And I know many people are very isolated and have a very different experience. So I'm not complaining, but it was definitely hard for me at first to find quiet, and a moment that could be mine, where I could really not have to spin all those plates we talked about at the beginning of the talk, but just have time to really contemplate what the next step was going to be for me in life and career. So that was our challenge. We got creative. We moved husband to a back bedroom away from my workspace, and then the kids could learn. We got wireless headsets for the kids to make sure that they could still hear their teachers even when mom was on a Zoom, the 10th Zoom for the day. So we got really creative in the Bishop household.
Oh, that was good. Yeah.
Well, that one
As
doesn't me.
Oh, keep going.
I was just gonna say, I live in a live workspace, so we're good.
I love that.
One of the
Oh, go ahead.
one of the challenges that I have found is that while my room is a full room and I have wonderful space, I have so many different aspects of my art all over the place, plus my work. And I find if work has been a stressful day, I want to leave the room. I can't read a script. I can't do any writing. I'm also a miniaturist. So there's nothing that I want to create in terms of building or making something in miniature. I just have to leave the room. So, the energy, you can't quite, or I can't quite control the energy in the room, where I could hopefully work maybe 4 hours a day and then go in over here and do some writing, just because I just want to get out of the room.
It bleeds into, other parts of life. Yes, I've definitely experienced that too in our quarantine. Yeah. I will also ask you all a really cool question that Emily came up with here. What new tools have you discovered during the pandemic that you will keep using after we return to, pre-COVID learning conditions? Obviously, we're all sitting here on Zoom. This is the thing that, boy, I wish I owned stock in when the pandemic hit, because we're obviously learning these new virtual platforms. But what else? What other tools have you found?
This is mine. This is so you clip this onto your computer and you can draw or write anything right down in front of your computer. And it's a new toy. I told Carly about it. She's ordering a couple of them, but it's really cool because when you want to show someone something, you just have a piece of paper right in front of your computer and they see exactly what you're doing. So this is my new,
Oh.
And I broke the glass. No, I didn't.
I bought 5 of them, Tia, so I can give you one if that one's broken.
Will you put in the chat what it is?
Yes, I urgently need one.
Yeah,
Whatever it is.
Now I got to figure out.
I must have it.
They are very affordable. You can get them on Amazon.
What are they called?
I can't remember what it's called either. My goodness, we're terrible advertisers.
I'm gonna see if I bought it on Amazon because it'll be in my little store.
Yeah, I bought it on Amazon. They were very affordable. They
right?
sold them like in 4-packs. And
what it does is the mirror, you put it in front of the camera, so the mirror shoots, very much like a parachute. So it shoots downward, as opposed to,
Could you do a demo, Tia, of how it works?
you can share your screen. You have right to. Yeah.
Well,
But
now
the point is you don't have to.
This particular computer has a cover on it, which is kind of hard to do, but I did force it one day. So here, let me
Get ready to replace it, Carly.
Right.
I do.
Normally you would just clip it on, but I have to move all my stuff out of the way from the
Oh, I see.
hold on one
It's
second.
over the camera.
Can't get it in there. Hold on.
Right, it's like having a top view camera, except you don't have to get a top view camera.
Yeah. Oh, look at that.
So,
Whoa!
it'll do better. I can't clip it on exactly the way it's,
Wow.
but then I can, and like I said, it's bigger. Oh, this is the wrong pin. That's so.
So it's instead of a screen share
Yes, it's
in a way.
yes.
A different,
Well, and instead of a $200 top view camera.
yeah, it's a different camera angle.
Yeah, they're very inexpensive. It's on Amazon. I will definitely share information once I can move away from my Zoom screen. But you can get these for an entire classroom of kids. So all the kids could sit there and watch each other draw and create in their little.
I was gonna make one because it's so simple, but I was like, nah. Charlie said she was coming up once. I said, if I just don't like this when it breaks or something. But yeah, I mean, it's great, and like I said, it was just hard for me because my computer has a case on it that for the life of me, I don't know how to take off anymore. But another thing it's good for, I found out, is the phone. You can put it on your phone, and so like if your phone is on a stand, you can clip it right on your phone, do this thing. And like what's good about that was the other day, someone, I was trying to look at her painting and I couldn't see it very well. So what she did was she went and got her her phone, and then and then I invited her on Zoom. So she had two different things on Zoom. And so she took her camera over to the painting so I could actually see it very well. And so what I realized was that if you could actually do that, you could have two different, you could be on Zoom like I am now, and then you can have a second, you can come in as a second thing on your phone. And so you can show people things on your phone just because it's still connected, onto Zoom. I don't know if that made any sense because Lord knows I didn't technically say it right. But I learned from her. I didn't know you could do that because I couldn't see what she was doing, and she just got on her phone. And then so I've had two different videos of her, and when she took the phone over, she just took it over to the piece so I could really see it. Because that's the biggest problem I have with teaching is seeing their work, especially watercolor, because they can't immediately just sit it up, because it'll run or something like that. But yeah, it works on the phone. It's pretty cool.
That is cool. That is very nice.
So I'll try
That's
and get
wonderful.
to the next person. Oh yeah, and I'll look it up too.
So it's called a mirror cam for distance learning.
Yeah.
Mirror cam for distance learning. I'm going to type that in the chat right now in case.
Ah,
The brand that I bought was IPEVO. There we go. Mirror cam.
oh, okay. That's nice.
And they were very, very,
Mirror cam.
I feel like asking that question really paid off.
indeed for mirror
Thank
cam
you, Tia.
companies.
When I saw the question, I saw it sitting over there. I was like, that's the answer.
Mirror cam.
I am like immediately buying one of those for my co-teachers
yeah,
right now.
I need to
She's already on Amazon while she's talking to us.
Yeah.
Again, spinning
I
multiple
did
plates.
just text her. I'm like, I'm getting you the coolest thing.
Oh, that is cool.
Thanks, Tia. So this is a point in time where we're going to start to wrap up our talk here. If anybody in our audience has any questions for the women here, feel free to type them in the chat. I have one last ask of my lovely panelists. If you have any upcoming shows, any sort of productions or anything that you want to get out there in the world, why don't we go around and share what we have upcoming on our plates so that people hear what we're working on. Anybody want to start?
Let's see. I do host open mic. So even though I haven't been able to do open mic at Smith Village in Beverly or at Down Home Guitars out in Frankfurt, we have been doing virtual open mics. So we have 2 virtual open mics coming up. Friday, actually 2 on the same day. Friday, March 26th from 3 to 4, the Cancer Treatment Center of America, where I did my breast cancer treatment back in 2012. I normally would always, when I was going for chemo or whatever, whenever I would go, I would always bring my guitar and sing for the patients or sing in the lobby or different things. So I normally perform for various events at the Cancer Treatment Center. So they asked me last month to host an open mic because they knew I did that. So they have an open mic coming up, virtual open mic Friday, March 26th. And I can make sure, since I have all your emails, to send the links to you. But that's their, the Cancer Treatment Center of America's open mic, virtual open mic will be at 3 p.m., just in an hour. And then Down Home Guitars out in Frankfort, Illinois. I've been running their open mic for a couple of years or so. They are having one at 7 o'clock on the same day, Friday, March 26th. I normally co-host with Molly Rose, who's a jazz guitarist there. And so we are going to be doing an open mic there. And I also send out a monthly, it's like an email blast. I probably have about 500 people on it, but whenever anyone has an upcoming show, a music or theater or something like that, everybody send me the information and I put it on my little MailChimp blog and send it out. I haven't, with COVID shutting everything down, pretty much I haven't done that in a while, but now that things are opening up, many musicians who have shows have been sending me some things to post. I normally post a lot of things for the Beverly Arts Center for their live Monday music in the past, because many of the musicians used to come for my open mic, and I actually gave some talent to the Beverly Arts Center to kind of, get hired. So they normally send me the information, I post it, I send it out. So if you guys are interested or have shows, upcoming shows, feel free to get my email and send it to me, and I'll be happy to post it in this particular blog. So I will start back this month because things are starting to open up. And then Matt at the Beverly Arts Center wants me to host the open mic in April for the Beverly Arts Center, but I don't think it's a normal one. I think it's a mini Mester or something. So it's going to be a little different. So
yeah, Debbie, that starts in May. It's the first
May. It's May. Okay, so it pushed it
it's
back.
an open mic workshop that people can sign up
Workshop,
for. Very,
yeah.
very affordable to come and participate in it. So yep, look for that on our website. That's a fun class.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Matt sent me some information about it, but I think originally when we talked about it, it was supposed to be April, and people have been asking me, Deb, when's another open mic? And I told him about the Beverly Arts Center, and then he looked it up. He thought, wait, there's a fee. And I said, it's a little different. So I'll, chat with you later on about all the logistics of it. But anyway.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Does anybody else have anything coming up that you can share?
Go ahead.
I don't know the exact date. I only know that we have to drop it off between the 18th and the 21st. But I have a sculpture going into the Museum of Science and Industries Black Creativity Show.
Oh, are you going to be in that?
Yeah.
Love that every year. Oh, awesome.
Yeah, this is the first time I'm going to actually have a sculpture in there. And I want this guy is cool. This is going to be the highest priced piece I've ever had. You can't really see it, I guess, super well. And this, it's missing a whole top piece, but watch. Look at that. Can you see in there?
That's cool.
It's dark in here, so you can't really see it, but it's a huge piece. It lights up. It does all kinds of stuff. It's called Waiting, and what is it? I forgot what it's called myself. It's on the books here. It's called Waiting and Waking is what it's called.
Oh, that's cool. they put on the most amazing Black creativity exhibit ever. Because Dorothy, who does the quilts, on the board, she
Yeah,
is there, and she's wonderful. That is the best exhibit ever.
yeah, they're pretty
It's
cool.
awesome.
They feed you
Yeah.
well when you're there. You actually get, except they're crazy. I'm telling you where they're crazy at though. They have this gala that goes on, and it costs $500 a ticket to get in. You think they give the artists tickets to get in? No, they don't. That's crazy. They're there to see our work, and they don't give us tickets to get. I mean, we have a show of our own that goes on, but the gala, we don't get to go in. It's like, that's where I want to be. That's where the money is,
That's really the good shrimp.
Yeah.
I know, because I was a cater waiter at several of those events.
Yes, yeah. So I cut someone off. Who was it that I cut off?
That was probably me.
Oh,
I'm constantly so here, two things. I have been working with Ingenuity this year, which I haven't mentioned so far, but Ingenuity is an outstanding organization in Chicago that brings together arts education organizations and school partners, and works to make sure that schools understand their role in supporting the arts, as well as organizations understand what they need to bring to a school, which has been really healthy for the arts landscape in Chicago. So I sit on their panel for partnerships and professional learning. And right now, they're offering an excellent series of workshops on trauma-informed learning in arts education setting. They've already finished a huge section of the workshops, and if they don't already have recordings of them available, they will be soon. So I highly recommend those. A lot of them have really practical, applicable information that you can really use in the classroom to connect point A to point B. There's plenty of kind of abstract thought in there too, but I've gotten a lot of really valuable tips out of that. And they're continuing those workshops with convening discipline-based groups in March and April, and maybe a little bit into May. So they have dance workshop. Their second dance workshop is next week, and then they have two each of theater and performing arts. They have visual arts / media arts. Oh, theater is I think grouped in with literary arts, and then they have a visual / media arts meeting and a music meeting group. And each one, they have two separate offerings. Those are another thing, like Joanna was mentioning and several other people have mentioned. They're drawing people from all over the world to these because the Trauma Informed series has been drawing more and more people in. So it's really fascinating to talk with people in other countries about how they're approaching their students' response to pandemic and their artistic response to the pandemic. And it's also just really great to be in the room with other people who work in the arts and are thinking about how the arts is going to have to help pull us out of the trauma of this situation, or help us process the trauma of this situation. Or, we're artists. We're going to be, everybody's going to be crying into the arts for a couple of years until we really start to understand what we've been through here. So so that's the thing that I'm promoting, because it's definitely what I should promote. But if you want to see the kind of designs that have been coming out of my head into clothing, you can also search my designer name on Etsy, which is MZPX, Ms. Pix, MZPX. If you search that, my designs will come up. And the shop they're in, Zen Zach. My dad named it. It's his shop. I don't know what it means. but he likes to put those two words together. So that's you can check out my sister's design, my dad's designs too. Like I said, we call ourselves an eclectic design collective because eclectic is what is coming out of us right now, and just spitting out all of the ideas that have conglomerated in our heads during this pandemic. So it's a lot of fun to see the weirdness.
Thank you.
Carly, there's
Yeah.
been so many wonderful links that people have mentioned and links to everyone's work. I wonder if you wouldn't mind just putting together sort of a document that just has.
Sure.
Joanna, thank you so much, because that's exactly what I was about to jump in and say. Thank you for
I would absolutely do that. And for our listeners listening at home who can't see the chat, I want to read Joanna's website here. It's www.equisvisual.com. equus-onsite.org, and Equus is spelled EQUUS, and then onsite is ONSITE.org. She speaks to a new book that she has coming out called About Physical Listening. Let me just tell you, when I first met Joanna and she did demonstrations for me regarding physical listening, it was absolutely fascinating. So I highly recommend you check that out. We also have one question here in our chat from a listener, and she says, performing doesn't come natural to me, but I think it truly does help those of us in the business world when it comes to storytelling and influencing decisions. Yeah. In your experience, what is one tip you may have for those that get the jitters before presenting or speaking in front of audiences?
Breathe. Deep breathing.
That is exactly what I was going to say.
Inhale for 8, inhale for 4 and then exhale for 8. And because that's the dependable way that you can slow down your heartbeat a little bit.
Yes. And I always tell people to think about their feet, how their feet are connecting to the ground, feel that weight and the support underneath of you. Think about your leg muscles lifting you up and your spine keeping you erect. But when I think about my feet, it keeps me very grounded and it helps me let go of some of those jitters. I also see here that Michonne has listed her website, and I'm going to spell it because I'm going to kill it otherwise. AYODELE drumanddance.com. She has community classes on Mondays and Thursdays. And I'm going to wrap up our event by talking about what the Beverly Arts Center has coming up this summer. I am directing the Comedy of Errors by William Shakespeare outside in our courtyard. I just held virtual auditions with our actors. This week we have callbacks on Friday. So it's going to happen in the middle of June outside in the BAC's courtyard. Professional actors will come together to do this slapdash zany tale of mistaken identity. I thought it was fitting because, we have to wear masks anyway, and half the time I don't know who my husband is in a mask. So we're going to use masking and the costumes to both keep our actors safe, but also add to the mistaken identity of the show. We will also start, as Debbie mentioned, our Music Mondays, which are free concerts every Monday in the BAC's courtyard. That begins on June 7th. We hope to see you there. It goes all the way through August. We also have a production that will also be in the courtyard in July that is TBD, but we will let you know as soon as we know the exact show it's going to be. And we're presenting Torch Song, a very famous play, on stage, hopefully, fingers crossed. Everybody cross your fingers and your toes and your eyes for me. In August, in a socially distanced, under capacity way, where we probably will only have about 90 people in our 400-seat theater, but that's going to hopefully, God willing, be the first time that we're back inside our beautiful Baptist Theater. So on behalf of everybody at the Beverly Arts Center, I would like to humbly thank you, wonderful, beautiful, fantastic women. You inspire me. You have piqued my passion yet again for my art, and I appreciate you so very much for sharing with us today. Every single one of you has been influential in my life and my career thus far. Michonne, we'll find a way for you to be influential too, since you're new to my group. Welcome, glad to have you. I cannot tell you how much Joanna was spot on when she said we are all in this together. As artists, as women, we will find our strength. We will pull through this. Just keep fighting. Don't ever let that candle die. Carpe diem. And I wish you all the best. Thank you so much for being a part of this with us tonight. And thank you, everybody, for joining our Arts Talk podcast with the Beverly Arts Center.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you all.
So nice to meet
Great
you.
to
Thanks
meet
so
you.
much, guys.
Yeah, very good.
Thank you all for listening. Please remember to donate on our website at www.beverlyartcenter.org. Please be well and be safe.